Assalamu alaikum. This is Aneesah Dawan, Little Rock, Arkansas, here for our Study Al-Islam conference this morning, as we are going through the ascension of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمد عبده ورسوله. I greet you once again with the peace and blessings of Assalamu alaikum. Inshallah, we are going to look at Prophet Yusuf. We are on our third level, is where we are in the ascension of the Prophet. As we've gone over the overall, and then now we are making our way through the levels. Today, I don't always start with where I end, but today I'm going to start with where we will end up, meaning I'm going to give you the picture at the end of what I believe to be some of the key understandings of this third level at Yusuf alayhi salam, at Joseph, and then we're going to work our way into it. Because I think 30 minutes, I almost feel like, I can talk for 30 minutes, but the ascension, it can actually be given in a method. It's just in the context where you can literally you can say them and you would understand them. I think I could say it and everybody would understand it, and you would see where the consciousness is moving, and then how you should move in your consciousness, how your consciousness is developed. Now, of course, we can always elaborate. There's more to be understood. But there is, on some levels, you can give it, and then you can understand it. You'll see it. So I'm going to give you just the ending idea in understanding, because we see Joseph in his method, in where he is. Every time you think about Joseph alayhi salam, you're going to think about his ability to interpret dreams. Right? That's one of the key things. You think about his this extreme amount of beauty that is stated to be represented in Joseph. Right? Oh my gosh, they have all these stories. He had, if the world, all the beauty was given to the world, and of 100%, Joseph had 80% of it, and then the rest of the 20% of the beauty was given to the rest of the human creation. You have things like that, right? This idea of understanding of who Joseph was. But all of those, if we understand anything from the tafsir and logic that Imam W.D. Muhammad was able to express by Allah's mercy, right? By Allah's permission and by Allah's mercy. By Allah's inspiration, which is what we're talking about today, is that we understand that everything that Allah gives, He gives it as a meaning in and of itself, but it also is representative of something else, right? It is giving as something that should be reflected upon, and then you understand actually it means something even bigger than just that simple idea. So in Yusuf and Joseph alayhi salam, you're going to get just this in a basic movement. We understand that there is no man has control over the spiritual dimension. It is inspiration or intuition from God that drives the human life. So, and man is created to be dominated by the spirit. So these are things. So if I tell you man is created to be dominated by his spirit, but then I come back and I tell you no man has control over the spiritual dimension. Only inspiration or intuition is from God. If I come and I tell you those two things, and then we look at the reality is that inside of the ascension, we came to the material man. We came to Adam alayhi salam, which all of these prophets are going to be their potential. Their movement is Adam. We all evolved from Adam. So this is Adam moving. All of us are Adam. Right? I'm Adam, and in each level, it's Adam moving up in his understanding until Adam gets to this level of Muhammad, right? Muhammad is the realization of all of these prophets, right? That's the Muhammad is that future reality. So when we're looking at this ascension, you're looking at your consciousness being turned on at each level, and each level still being Adam. So Adam, this material man who's possessing all of this, then you came in this evolution, you came to the second level, right? And in that second level is where you get the spirit. And on the spiritual plane, you have two, okay? So Joseph is the fourth prophet, but on the third level, okay? He is the fourth prophet, but on the third level. In the first level was Adam. In the second level, you had Jesus and John. So we know, those of you who have been listening through the entire time of this ascension, you know that this was the spiritual level, and that Jesus and John were on that level. John being the negative, Jesus being the positive. Not negative and positive as in bad and good, but negative as in negation, right? He's the spirit in the negation of things, denouncing things, right? That's not in accord, right? The Jesus being the positive, meaning those things that are accepting, right? In this, but both of them being the spirit, both of them being representative of the spirit. Now, if I tell you, as I gave the statement, and I said, man is created to be dominated by the spirit, right? I said that, right? I give you that as an understanding, and you say, okay, I can accept that. Man is created to be dominated by the spirit. Well, if that's the case, when I get to, and it is the case, right? But logically, you're going to begin to think, man is created to be dominated by the spirit. I got to the second level of the spirit. That's what the second level was. Surely I should be done by now, right? I should be completed. That, hey, I'm good. I learned of the spirit. There's nothing else. My consciousness is whole. I am able to understand things because I am at a conscious level and awareness of the spirit, the spiritual movement that is in my material matter. I'm conscious. I know that, right? I am a human being. I have this material body, but I understand that there is a spiritual entity that rules over my material makeup. So I should be completed. Well, Allah keeps ascending the Prophet, right? Because that's not the end of consciousness. Although Allah is understood that the spiritual, that the human being is meant to be ruled by the spirit. That is what we understand, right? Now Muhammad explained that the human being is meant to be ruled by his spiritual makeup. That's what should rule you. Well, the issue with that is that no man has control over the spiritual dimension. Okay? So in your consciousness, after Allah evolves you to this understanding, He also needs you to understand that you are dominated by the spirit, but you do not rule the spirit. And he says that the inspiration or the intuition that drives the spiritual makeup is coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's coming from God. You can't just jump up and be like, I'm going to be intuitive right now. This is Joseph. This is Joseph. This is where we are in this plane. Joseph represents the intuitive nature of the human being. He represents the very thing that sets control over the spiritual dimension. This is the intuitive nature. This is why we're still evolving in our consciousness. If you can imagine, when you have disruption inside of the evolution of your conscious mind and your conscious understanding, then you're going to skip over a level and think yourself something that you're not. This is why we have disruptions in this process. This is why you'll have someone who will start attributing their thought and their understanding and their wisdom to something that is not true, because they missed the part of their conscious development. Because where are we going to get to after we pass this third level? We're going to get to Idris, the darasa, the knowledge. Oh, look at this. We a level of spirit, and then you go to intuition before you ever get to knowledge. Allah is setting up for the human being how you should even see your knowledge. Your knowledge isn't something that you just get and you have without ever coming to Allah and having the intuition and the inspiration from Allah. Intuition or inspiration. This is what that is. This is what you have to put all of that together. The inspiration, and Allah says in Quran, He says that no one that you don't really fully understand or get the ruh from Allah. You can't fully get that inspiration. He said I'll only tell you a little bit about the inspiration. He said you only know a little bit about that. He said that comes by the direction and the command of Allah. And this intuition in your conscious development and you being able to develop properly, it comes before you get to your knowledge. So if you skip over your intuition, if you skip over in your consciousness, the understanding that your knowledge and your growth is based in your material, which has a material that has a spirit in it, and this spirit is meant to dominate the material life. But when you get this spirit, that spirit is then, you can't control it, because it is controlled by an intuition and an inspiration by its Lord. Isn't that beautiful? This is proper development. This is where you have arrested development. I don't know how many of you all know about arrested development. It's probably within my grouping of people, in my culture group of people, that you get arrested development because it's stopped. It can't move because it skipped over the reality that your spiritual dimension is over your material life, and that spiritual dimension is controlled and moved by inspiration and intuition from its Lord. That's real. Okay? So that's the overall thing. Well, how is it that you tap in to this inspiration and this intuition? Right? Because this is what Yusuf, alayhi salam, this is what he tapped into. Did he tap into it because he was so beautiful, because he had all this 80% of the beauty of the entire human race? No, that's not even what it's talking about. That's not what drove Yusuf, alayhi salam. So the next thing, if we talk about the idea that Joseph, he was able to interpret these dreams, that he got these dreams. All of that is inspiration. He didn't lay down and say, I'm going to dream tonight. You asked me the question, I'm going to dream tonight, and I'm going to tell you the answer. That's not, you don't control it. There's no time framing on it. There's no, I'm pulling together my intuition right now. You just wait. It doesn't work that way. So it's not like he laid down and said, this is what I'm going to do, right? He doesn't know what's going to happen. But he knows that his self, he's giving to himself in a certain fashion. So this is what also we know, right? Imam Muhammad is explaining Joseph on this third level. He says that Joseph, he represents the psyche of man, of the human being. And on this third level, in Joseph representing, is that Joseph also, when we think about him, we think about the dreams. We think about the fact that of the whale, right? That his family, that his brothers, right, betrayed him. We think about his vision, right? Once again, that's still the inspiration, the intuition. He had the spirit of that intuition. It came well, right? Even advanced before it was realized, right? In what he saw and what he told his father, right, Jacob. And so when he was thrown, this is Jacob being aware, he's thrown into the well by his brothers, right? And he was picked up by those who were getting their water out of the well, and then he was sold, right? And even in the selling of Joseph, right, Imam Muhammad explained that he was sold for 20 pieces of silver, right? Still being representative of a consciousness, right? And it was a consciousness of the spirit. It was a consciousness of the spiritual nature. Because Imam Muhammad explained, he said it was 20 pieces of silver, 10 being representative of consciousness. The 10, anything in tens, right, is representative of consciousness. So the 10 being representative of conscious, and then 2 at 10 was of the spiritual nature, right? The second level being the spirit, the 10 being consciousness. So he was sold at this consciousness of the spirit. Once again, this is what Joseph is representing. On the third level, it is a consciousness in the spirit, which is represented in intuition. So in this level, when he was sold for the 20 pieces of silver, right? And then when he was sold, he ultimately wound up as a servant, right, in the house of the great Aziz. And in this house, right, he was they attempted to seduce him, the Aziz's wife, right, attempted to seduce him because of all this 80% of beauty that he had. So he attempted to seduce him, and in this attempt, Joseph, he denied her, right? He's like, oh, you Allah, like I don't want this. This is not what I desire. And the people, all the women, they're like, oh my God, the great Aziz's wife, she's trying to seduce her servant, like she lost it, right? So she invites all of them, and they're there and they're around, and she invites him in. She's like, okay, you all think you so high and mighty, and you think, listen to this, right? You think that your spirit is intact with Allah. This is what you think. I want you to be very, very aware. You have to see Joseph's picture and understanding as something that is congruent in what Allah has him representing. Okay? So it says that man is dominated by their spirit. Well, your spirit can be infected by something else outside of Allah if you do not rely on Allah for intuition and inspiration to dominate your spirit. Man is controlled by the spirit. But you can get a wrong spirit in you, right? They call alcohol spirit. Because if you start drinking alcohol, your spirit is going to be ruled and dominated by that alcohol. You will do things that once you wake up and you become sober, you won't even recognize your own self and what you did. They do it all the time in the movies. The person drinks the alcohol, they go and they have relations and sexual relations with people who they don't even know. They wake up and they're looking next to them and they're like, oh my God, who are you? What happened? Why? Because their spirit was ruled by something that was not in accord with Allah. So when the Aziz's wife, she sees Joseph, her spirit, because it wasn't checked, and this is what we're getting to, what Joseph represents, because it wasn't checked, that her spirit was moved in a way that was not accepting of the proper evolution of the human conscience. So she invited the women. She said, come on in. Let's have some dinner. Put knives by them. so they will know, right? So when he came out, they're all thinking that they're using their knives properly. They're using their consciousness properly. But then they realized that they had cut themselves because now they're like, oh, their consciousness wasn't evolved in the manner that it should be, because and this is where the Aziz is like, okay, this is a problem. I can't keep Joseph loose out here with the people, not evolved. We have to lock that up. We have to lock him up. We have to place him in prison. And Joseph, in his awareness, he said, prison is better for me. I accept prison. I accept prison in the development of my own self, right? And this is where he got the dream. So let me read something. I want to read something of Imam Muhammad's tafsir before we get to this next point of how and understanding how we are to evolve and arrive at intuition and inspiration, because this is how Joseph arrived there. Imam Muhammad, he says that Joseph, he represents the psyche of man. He said, you go to the third level now, and there is Yusuf. He said, now after the spirit, what happened? He said, the psyche in darkness was upon the deep, and the spirit moved along the face of the waters. He said, God said, let there be light, and there was light. He said, Yusuf is on the third plane, and he, in my understanding, represents the psyche. All of these natural properties of human matter or creation. He said, that is all they are. So Yusuf represents that, and history bears it out. He said, why was he loved so much by the ruler of Egypt? Because of his psychic powers. This is why he was loved, right? Joseph was pulled out of prison, not because, he had been in there long enough and, oh, you know what, okay, that's enough time. No, he was only brought out after his psychic power was made known to the great Aziz, and his psychic power was able to come and thwart something that would have happened. He stopped something that would have happened. So, and this, okay, we'll get to that. I'm about to jump ahead. So his psychic power was able to stop something that would have happened of a negative thing, right? They were coming into a period where had he not been able to key in to his intuition and his inspiration from Allah, that the people, many more would have died than what may have happened, because they had a period of drought. But because of the intuition of Joseph, because of the intuition of Yusuf alayhi salam, he was able to tell them that we're about to enter a period of drought, and if you do not store away in excess what you would have in these times of plenty that normally you would have just let rot, you would have just set it aside. Why? Because everything is great. It's going so plentiful right now. Oh, who cares? Well, Yusuf's intuition and inspiration from Allah is what allowed his psyche is what was connected to Allah in a fashion that allowed him to tell them, hey, let's not do this. It wasn't because he was so great, which is what we'll say now. Somebody comes and they're able to give some information, and they receive an inspiration from Allah, and then the people say, oh man, that person, they were so great. Oh yeah, they were this. Instead of saying, alhamdulillah, right? Allah allowed them to give you that information. This is why I tell people all the time, don't say, oh, I gave you this and this was so great. Imam Muhammad would tell us all the time. Don't say, I did this and I did this. Say, alhamdulillah, I'm telling you, this is Allah's inspiration that is giving me this. The understanding of these 7 levels, I've never seen them in the tafsir, in the understanding of Muhammad the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in all of the understandings of his life and all of that. This, what is given to us as a development of human consciousness, that was given by intuition and inspiration from Allah to Imam W.D. Muhammad. That was intuition. So you have to say, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. So here, Imam Muhammad, he goes on. He says that this, he said that the intuition, he said that the intuition with this, he said, and this is the third level, with the great potential or the psyche of that body for arriving at knowledge without use of the 5 senses. Once again, so the intuition is the ability at arriving at knowledge without use of the 5 senses. So remember I said the next level is going to be the one of knowledge, right? This is Idris. But when you get to that level, right, then you're going to move, and it's established on the 5 senses. This level that we're in now with Joseph is we are establishing knowledge without the 5 senses. So it goes on. Let me get to another part I want to explain real quickly here before I get to the hurrah of it all. So in Joseph, alayhi salam, what placed him in prison and what allowed him to be in a situation, to be given the dream that would let him out of prison, was him denying the advances of the Aziz's wife. So he had a moral consciousness in him, Joseph. He says, Imam Muhammad explains, he says, Joseph's rational mind was moral. He said that he talked about Jesus Christ, right, being betrayed for 30 pieces of silver. He said Joseph representing one orientation in the mind or in the mental makeup of the person who is serving or striving for something. He said for Joseph, it represents moral nature. His rational mind was moral. He did not have a rational mind that was secular. He was a perfect man in his moral nature. He said Jesus Christ too, but Joseph typifies or represents that, whereas Jesus Christ represents the Spirit. This is what we are to understand of Joseph in his makeup that allowed him to tap into the intuition and the inspiration from Allah. Okay? Joseph's rational mind was moral. His rational mind was moral. So if you want to see, this is where, if in understanding this, you said our first ending was to say that the human being is meant to be dominated by the spirit. The spiritual dimension is not in control of the human being. It is only by inspiration and intuition from Allah that the human being can move the spirit. The spirit is dominating the human being, but the spirit can be taken over by something else. And that spirit will still dominate the material. So your spirit can be taken over by the spirit of this society, and that will dominate your physical. It will dominate your material because it's meant to. The spirit is going to dominate the material. The only way that you are going to allow the intuition and the inspiration to drive your spirit is for you to have a moral mind. It's for your rational mind to be moral. So I remember talking about ideas of morality at one point, and I was looking to say that there is a science to morality. See, in order to have a rational mind that is moral, that means even morality is a science. It's a movement. That your morality. This is letting us know that a part of the science of morality is to say, if you want to tap into your psyche, if you want to tap into your intuition and advance your consciousness, you have to think rationally in a moral makeup. This is Joseph. Joseph didn't look at the Aziz's wife and say, let me calculate if I'm going to be able to get away with allowing the great Aziz's wife to seduce me. How many guards do we have outside? What's the likelihood of the guards coming in? What's the likelihood of her telling someone else because, she's Aziz's wife, so if something happens to me, something's going to happen to her too. So that means after I calculate all of this in not using morals, I'm not using morals, right? I'm using probabilities. I'm using the likelihood of being caught. I'm using she's seducing me, and oh, she's great. I'm using status. Ooh, this is going to be good for me. I can get whatever I want now. He didn't use that. He used morality. He used his moral in his rational. That's what he used. A rational that was dominated by morality. When he did that, it placed him in prison for a time. But then it allowed him to come out of prison by way of intuition from his Lord, and then he dominated the material life. There you have it. The spiritual given to a moral understanding and a moral makeup in the rational thinking. gives way to Allah providing inspiration and intuition for your spirit. And that spirit will dominate the material, and you will rule, but you will be a just ruler, and you will be directed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We pray that this has been good. That is the evolution of your consciousness. And as we evolve, we are able to do better. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I also encourage everyone who may have missed the live broadcast for Imam Kazim Ahmed to go on to Masjid W.D. Muhammed, Houston, Texas, and donate via the PayPal, via the links there. You can catch it on YouTube. You can get it on their Facebook page. But he is in need, and we ask that you give as one who is conscious in their spirit. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.